So probably I started you with I said Uade Ahimie, but then let's get on
Good
to
morning, Chibuzor.
good morning Chibuzor Nwaezeapu.
That's the first time. That's the first time.
Omatseye is very
or
good in pronouncing my last name. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Uade.
Gentlemen, so let's dig into the papers this morning with this one coming in from the Vanguard newspaper. Uade, you would kick us off with this paper, Vanguard. The headline, Federal Government withdraws contempt charge against the NLC TUC. The last time we pick up the headlines on this program, on the show, was that the NLC and the TUC had said, withdraw that suit or else. Or else what? So we asked. But here we are. It seems the federal government is seeming want to do some. They're learning new habits now to do things. When they say words, they match it up. Take us through it.
Well, it's finally, at the end of the day, they had a deal. The NLC and TUC had a conversation with the president, came to terms and agreement on some things to end the protest that started on the 2nd last week. So it was amazing when I still heard that the Ministry of Justice had what's it called, had the suit still pending.
Yes.
It didn't make sense. If the president had come to agreements with the labor unions, then it should have gone. It gave them 7 days, and today is the last day.
Yeah.
So they only just did it yesterday. I don't know why we continue to drag our feet on things that we know that we need to do. But I guess the other issue is about the necessary back and forth in terms of paperwork, which sometimes in the legal space could take some time. You have to register it, the people who are going to write it, and the opinions they are going to write, so that they can get those correspondence done. But at least it's good news that they've written to their labor unions that they've withdrawn the suit. So let's wait and see how it will go in terms of the president's promise. We know that he made a few promises. Palliatives are already starting to come out in some of the states, which is some of the things I think Chibuzor and I spoke about last week. Let's start from a state level, and then we'll see how the federal government will complement that. The president has also promised that by December, the Port Harcourt refinery will start to produce. Although we've heard for the last 8 years, if not more, the production of the refineries. And I think they said Warri and Kaduna will start production I think Warri in first quarter and Kaduna is second quarter of 2024. So let's see how it goes. But this is good news. So we will expect the labor unions to still be on the roads or come out onto the roads again tomorrow.
Okay, that's all about it for that headline, simply saying that the federal government withdraws contempt charge against the NLC and the TUC. You can read more of that on the Vanguard newspaper. Chibuzor, you're next. Let's pick up this next headline, and it's coming from the Punch newspaper. This one has a grave. It has economic and diplomatic, connotations to it. Niger mega rail project threatened, over 1,000 trucks trapped in between as the flexing of muscles continue. We are told that up to about 350 million naira worth of goods are trapped in this process. Chibuzor, these are not containers we are talking about.
So, obviously on July 26th, there was a coup in Niger. The government of the day, the democratically elected government of President Bazoum, was overthrown by the military and installed their new head of state. I think President Bazoum is still in their custody, and that has triggered a lot of reactions across board from ECOWAS, from other states, from outside Africa. There are a lot of interested parties in what is happening in Niger. One of my opinions about whenever I look at Nigeria, one of my concerns about Nigeria is that Nigeria is basically bordered by some of the poorest countries in the world. Niger being one of them, the other obviously is Chad. Benin is not far away, but those are two major countries that are quite poor. But also when you look at the access towards the northern part of Africa, those two countries play a large role. And they are rather strategic because of even the ethnic makeup of part of Nigeria. So And if you look down the north, a lot of people down the north, where if you take away the artificial borders that exist today in modern day times, a lot of the people who come from northern Nigeria, a lot of the Hausas, the Kanuris, some Fulanis have stronger relationships, have stronger family ties across the border to places like Niger and Chad, particularly. So, for those who don't understand Nigeria's interest in Niger, and then Nigeria is putting its nose into Niger, there are various reasons. Obviously, Nigeria is also, other things I need to put into. Nigeria has been coping with IDP issues. If there is a breakout in Niger, obviously Nigeria is going to feel the full brunt of that also. So Nigeria does have a role to play, and there are various strategic interests, also economic interests, like Omas pointed out. One of this one of this is our 2 billion investment into rail lines that was supposed to start, I think, in Kano and terminating Maradi in Niger. Now, I remember when this came up initially, I think it was in 2021 when the then minister, Rotimi Amici, was mentioning there was a lot of sarcasm, especially down south, while we terminating a rail line in another country. Why are we going to Niger? What are we getting from Niger? But the reality is that there is a lot of trade that happens between people, especially across the northern borders from Nigeria and terminating and goes through Niger. Even so, when with this particular impasse and both countries shutting up their borders, obviously what has happened is that the guys who are doing their daily business have now been trapped in between both borders. And this is not the only thing to be concerned about. I think there's supposed to be the trans-Saharan rail pipelines that actually should start in Nigeria and terminate in Morocco that would go through Niger.
Well, you know that Trans-Saharan pipeline, they're considering maybe it should go through the coast because of this kind of
Yeah.
of
So,
issues.
but yes, the original plans is to go through Niger. So that's another thing to look at. So
Okay.
if you have a country that is at odds with Nigeria at this point, having a plan that goes through them basically allows them to hold you at, to use the
This
lack
is
of a better word.
not a juggler right now. It
Yeah,
is down south.
yes, they basically have you at gunpoint. There's also even as at yesterday we heard that they had shut down their airspace. So those who are traveling in that direction, who have to go towards that direction, maybe to go towards Europe or go towards Northern Africa, are gonna have to take a detour, and not just a detour in the air, they will take a detour in their pockets.
Okay.
So
Chibuzor,
Nigeria has big stakes in Niger at the moment.
you hit the nail on the head. But just also to put to contest here, the 248 kilometers rail is expected to connect Kano,
Yes,
and then run into Bauchi, and then Daura, Machi in Katsina, Dutse in Jigawa, and the border town of Jibia, terminating in Maradi. So we can see how crucial that is.
I was going to crack that it's going to go to Dara and pick up the
Oh, you didn't have to do that. Okay, but
he told us he would go to Niger if he gave him too much stress. So.
Okay, so quickly, you as listening also, you can be part of it by sending us your thoughts on the conversation so far on 0809 444 0981. That's where to send your messages to. It's freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. I've got Uade Ahimie here and Chibuzor Nwaezeapu still with me. So let's get on to the next story. I come to Uade for this next story. The next story here would be this one coming in. Wally, this is 4. Yeah, I know you do even numbers. These other ones. So let's get on to this next story. This one here is telling us of the billion naira debt that WAEC, that's the West Africa Examination Council, withholds results of candidates from 8 states in the country. That's according to the Vanguard newspaper. Do people write exams on credits, please? And I just need an answer to this one.
Well, people can write exams on credit if they have good guarantors, and I think what is happening here is a number of states usually for their WAEC students make payments for their WAEC. Over the years, we've heard WAEC complain about some states who students who write the WAEC exams and they don't get paid at the end of the day, and 8 states are owing them, so as such they withheld, or they're going to. I don't know if the results have been officially published, but they're going to withhold. When they say this, it means that the results are coming out soon. Are going to withhold the results of those 8 states. And
No,
It's
we're not naming and shaming these states, but then it's good so we know these states so that for
well,
once.
the highest debtors, according to the story, is Zamfara and Niger State. I wanted to say Niger, but I have to be very careful. Um, they are the highest debtors.
Yes.
This year, um, Zamfara did not present any candidate for this year's WAEC exams.
Nobody finishing secondary school. Is that the implication of what it's saying here?
I'm
Maybe
going
to write
to
Neko.
chip in.
maybe Chibuzor wants to help me.
One of my, it's a longer, it's just a longer story that for me, and it talks about how we're looking at our educational system. So far back when I was going to primary school, there was this, I came from the Dembendel state where you had to score very interesting marks to get into unity schools. The unity schools didn't start with, that was my first experience of what Nigeria meant to be for a young person. And I was now informed about things about having educationally disadvantaged states and the quotas that were set for them and how they had reduced limits for them. And what I have not seen is that when you set quotas for people, even in workplaces, you do give them KPIs for improvement so that you can manage and mark their improvement. How do they? So over some time, you either reduce those quotas so when they stabilize. But what we have seen in Nigeria is that those quotas have remained forever and eternal, and nobody seems to be looking at it. So
and nobody does.
When you look at look at some of the states which are impacted in this, it shows you how less they pay attention to education. And this is not the first year Zamfara has had no candidate.
Yeah.
It is almost, I used to have a colleague who used to be in Zamfara. I used to make fun of that. You guys should just put some money together for some of your young people to go there.
Okay.
Because it's problematic and Nigeria will pay the price for it.
Uade, Chibuzor, we need to go on this quick break. When we come back, it is still freshly pressed and we'll pick up some of your messages and of course get into the papers. I still have something I need to dig into on the this WAEC and the billions being owed. I see some improvement in the results of the students, but that will be after we come back from this break. Stay tuned. It's still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM.
Start your day the smooth breakfast way. Always fresh. Weekday mornings on Smooth.
Are you in a state of dilemma wondering the best way to grow your money? I'm here to tell you about ARM. ARM is all about ensuring your financial goals are met with ease, no matter who you are or what you do.
So
whether you
I see there's an improvement in that from what they're saying that generally now. So that before we move away, let's look at that improvement in the relationship with
or your rent is due, buying some properties or preparing for the future. ARM has got you covered. There are a lot of mobile apps out there promising you to grow your money, but ARM has everything you need to go from where you are and where you need to be. Start your wealth creation today by downloading the ARM One app from Google Play Store or iOS Store. There are great options for everyone, and you could even start with as low as 1,000 Naira. That's amazing. For more information, visit arm.com.ng or call 01-271-5002, and that is 01-271-5002.
98.1. The best of everything in the morning, and more.
A little less conversation, a little more action.
Weekday mornings, 6 till 10.
And we're back. Smooth 98.1 FM. It is freshly pressed, and I still got my analyst in the house. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. So before we left, we were looking at that story, very disturbing story, knowing that the examination body WAEC is being owed all of these amount, running into billions, and it seemed like after burning the midnight oil, when results comes out, the students will not have the pleasure of holding it and treasuring what they've labored for in terms of the results. But I can't help but notice that there is a silver lining somewhere. It seems there's an improvement in our children's score from what the spokesperson for WAEC is talking about there. Uade, could you take us through it?
So about 84.38% obtain credits and above in the minimum requirement of about 5 subjects. It represents about 79.81%, which for me is really good. Obtained credits above in a minimum of 5 subjects, including English language and mathematics. It's like we're improving. You know?
So-
So it's something for me that, but like Chibuzor was saying, in terms of where you have quotas for people or for members of states or people within states to write their work exams.
Yes.
If there is no additional driving force from the government, from the system, then what you have is these quotas just remain like, okay, no problem, I don't really have to go to school, and you get there. But there are some exceptional people who will tell you that irrespective of what happened, then what happens if the states don't pay? Maybe I throw that back to children.
So that's what the entire point is not saying criticizing people from the states or the state. It's about looking at how is the government looking at it as a target that they need to improve on. Are they investing properly into education? Because I can look at this, look at the headlines alone and say, you know what, this is evidence of the government not investing properly into education. But it's also a discussion that needs to be had, because some of the states will come out with the arguments that, you know, our revenue there's a shortfall in our revenues, you don't have enough money to pay. Then the question comes, why are you taking upon this burden wholly?
Yeah, but why are you substituting education, which is vital to the development, literacy of the state,
for that thing?
You know?
So there's that argument will even go as far as the federal government.
That's
so
where you see it's interesting. I begin to see how the pendulum begins to go now, from Uade to Chibuzor, and then it goes back and forth. But then you can be part of this to help us get the pendulum to a stop somewhere by sending your messages on to 0809 4440981. Chibuzor, you're next on this one. This one, it's from the Premium Times. Ministerial nominees. Senate confirms Wike, the former governor, the immediate past governor of Rivers State. I think there's one Wike so far who has bestrode the political landscape in the last 8 years. And Festus Keyamo, Adelabu as ministers, refuses to clear 3 others. So walk us through this story. After 2 weeks, we now have ministers, right?
Okay, finally we have the ministers, and I know a lot of people have run around town saying, oh, that, you know, see how fast the government has come out with the ministers. But I also need to remind a lot of people that prior to this particular government, there wasn't nothing mandated the government to come out with the ministers in any given timeline. A law was passed just as the last president exited that made it mandatory for the president to come out with his list within a particular time frame. So that also came into play in this particular scenario. So let's all put that at the back of our minds. So the headline says basically that 3 of the senators have not been cleared.
Those unlucky fellows.
Yeah, well, they've not been confirmed. I think
you can look at the list.
Yeah, they say delay is not denial,
Yes.
so they'll still get there. I think
Patience is a virtue.
yeah,
So.
obviously, we're going to have to learn a lot of patience in Nigeria over the years. So the 3 people are former the governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State, former senator from Taraba Sani Danladi, and a nominee from Delta, and I think she was a former member of the Nexim board, Stella Okotite. Yeah, I do know that there are 1 or 2 petitions flying around, but I know that about her eligibility for her last rule in Nexim, although I think some of these things have been cleared off by some way or the other. I don't expect there to be too much issues with Nasir El-Rufai and Sani Danladi, because what the reasons for the delay that have been stated here, they are awaiting security clearance. All things being equal, Governor El-Rufai was a former governor, just stopped being a governor some months back, and he's also, you know, he served the government previously in previous roles, and also a strong party member. So I don't see anything really stopping him from being confirmed in the long run. And obviously the same goes for the senator, former Senator Sani Danladi, who I'm sure who just took a bow. And
okay. Now, Chibuzor, this is for me. If leadership is a very exhausting process to run a state for 8 years, the ideal is when people come out of service, they would take out time to go for vacation, debrief, detox, and all that. So why do we find these former governors just out of office? They're still, I hope we don't have cases of exhaustion, people collapsing in the presidential villa as a result of not resting properly in this case.
Okay, I'm going to try not to sound cynical, so I'm just going to go straight to the point. The way power works in Nigeria, especially if you're a professional politician, which is what a lot of professional politicians, when I say professional politician, you've been in politics for the last 12, 16 years, you basically have no second life apart from politics. You want to return to power. Is that you have to remain in the circles of power to still hold on to power, or you have a big bag of money to sponsor candidates who are, who have some loyalty to you, and that's what tends to happen with these guys. So a lot of them would transit largely from the guys who are not in the ministerial list. A lot of them are in the Senate, the House of Reps. So you see governors who basically step down, and as they're stepping down, because they want to keep hold on to influence in their states and within the parties, they just slide into the senatorial positions.
Patriotism.
Well, they want to serve the country. Oh yes, they want to serve their state and country. They want to continue
I don't
serving.
understand why you are being.
Okay, I'm going to be less cynical. They want to continue serving the state and the government, because
that's the simple word.
They are one of the very few people in their states that understand what the problems are
and
how
they are
to solve the
patriotic to
problems.
make sure that those things are being done.
Rest. They will rest later.
Can we bring it in this way now? So, at the end of the show, I guess both of you may have to see a copy of this poem. Probably it used to be part of requirements for secondary in literature, Building the Nation, where the driver drove the perm sec to a particular function. When they were returning back home, the perm sec was yawning out of exhaustion of having enjoyed the goodies of the event, and then the driver taking the perm sec home was yawning out of thorough hunger because he stayed out all throughout the period. And the shameless perm sec was asking the driver, "Did you have something to eat?" Anyway,
Mazda said it not.
No, I'm just guys. I am sending you. This is more like an after the show, something for you guys to look up on. But let's get on to our messages here quickly. This one is it's been waiting. I see Rexy sent in a message responding to the NLC, the government dropping that suit against the NLC and TUC. Says the Tinubu administration has one undeniable character. It listens. That's Rexy. Then I find Yinka Bolu with a message here saying the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline is being conceived as a means to sell gas to Europe, who's looking at reducing their dependence on Russian oil. The Nigerian-Morocco gas pipeline goes through the coastline, but more expensive considering the length. Then it goes on, putting these other together, we see the semblance of proxy war here, and that's what Nigeria shouldn't be caught between. However, because we don't want to be caught within, doesn't mean we allow for illegality, because when the dominoes comes crashing, we will suffer it. Libya is a classical example. I served in Zamfara state, and trust me, Nigeria can't allow instability in Niger. Rara, emphasis mine. And hence, this one, it goes, hence all options should be on the table, even military option, which should be the last result if sanctioned by the National Assembly.
So if Amas would allow me, and I just want to jump a bit on what Yinka Bolu said. There is some, obviously there's some value in what he said. But, there was something I think was attributed to the president of Liberia about how ECOWAS and AU have sat silently while even incumbent presidents have changed laws, have changed rules to serve their purposes, even democratically elected government, and they kept quiet about it. So while I understand that Nigeria has direct interest in Niger, the question also about this is how far will we need to go? Because, just yesterday, I believe, the guy in car who's gotten Wagner right behind him, yes, who has Wagner right behind him, has made amendments to the constitution that allows him to sit as long as he wants to sit and sleep as long as he wants to sleep in power. What is AU going to do about it?
It's true. When you think about it, so-called democratically elected governments in countries, I'm using West Africa now.
Yes.
People have been there. They come in elected, they fight, they struggle, become president, and then the next thing they want to be president for life. Nobody speaks about that. Nobody says anything about that. Some of the things that have happened in Burkina Faso, in Mali,
Burkina Faso,
and these are the things that have brought about it. If you turn a blind eye to Mr. A and then open your eyes to Mr. B, it's a remedy for
okay. Because if you had spoken to Mali and Burkina Faso, now both of them are supporting, they're directly supporting Niger.
Mark Anthony is waiting on the line with messages here.
Let's move on.
It says, "Good morning, guys. My name is Mark Anthony Anelichuku from Ajegule. The truth about the exam scores is that a lot of schools now involve themselves in examination malpractice to become the best in their area and also to help attract more students to their schools. There is a cartel for all. This is in our local areas." And Fabian goes on with this one from Ekbe. "Good morning. Unfortunately, with the present state of education sector, the students, youth of today are geared to become worse than our leaders of tomorrow. Without education, no nation can become better." That's what Fabian left us with. But let's quickly go to you now, Wadi, as you send us home with this paper. The Nation. Oyo State workers resume work after a week-long strike.
So they were complaining about non-payment of salaries, leave bonuses, and review of their pension allowances. Well, invariably, when you want to review pension allowances, it means that you have to review the salaries. So they've been away for about 7 days. The governor met with them, promised to look into a number of the issues and as timely as possible. So the labor unions have called off the strike, which is good. Because once government parastatals are not working, what it then means is that you can't get anything done in terms of regulatory requirements and a number of those issues. So this is good news for your state. I do hope that the governor he would act the words that he has spoken as quickly as possible, you know.
And Chibuzor, can you just quickly sum this one up for us? Kwara distributes patrol vans, motorcycles to tackle insecurity. That's according to the Punch newspaper in 40 seconds.
Okay, like he says, the state government has distributed motorcycles and patrol vehicles basically to help tighten security. So he's given the patrol vehicles went to the Road Traffic Management Authority. The motorcycles went to each of the 16 local governments in Kwara got 2 motorcycles to help also tighten security. I guess they'll use them for patrols or whatever they used to want to use them for to try and tighten security within the state. It's actually quite interesting because when I saw the headlines initially, I thought they were actually doing the usual ban on motorcycles, but Kwara is going in the opposite direction to actually use them as means of transport to help coordinate their security activities. So let's see how it goes for Kwara. Security is something that should happen across board from the local governments down upwards. The local communities actually to the local governments and the state, and obviously federal government needs to pay their part. So it's good to see a state doing something
about security.
Thank you, guys. Let's quickly sum up with the messages on the WhatsApp platform. And Frank from Festac, governance in Nigeria is not exhausting. It is actually a holiday, so they don't have any reason to rest after leaving State House. Just proceed straight to Aso Rock. It's a continuation of the jamboree. That's according to Frank from Festac. Yinka Bolu comes back, not to be done yet. If Ekomog had sat silently, George Weah, won't be in office today. Probably still an immigrant in Italy. His son doesn't even play football for Liberia, but rather for America. So how is he different from the typical African leadership?
Wow, that's a tough one.
All right, Chibuzor, Nwaezeapu, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Matt.
I want to say thank you to Uade, Ahimie for your time also.
Thank you, Omatseye.
And for everyone who sent in messages to the Freshly Pressed this morning, that's talking about Yinka Bolu, Frank from Festac, I see Rexy, Fabian, Mark Anthony, and Mecca. Thank you all so much. We're smooth 98.1 FM. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. I'll talk to you in about 15 minutes time, and that will be just time for the Grapevine. Stay